The Curse of the Headless Specter. It was a cold, moonless night when Ethan decided to take the old forest road. The path was known for its eerie reputation, but he had heard all the ghost stories before and dismissed them as mere folklore. Ethan was a skeptic, someone who believed in the tangible and logical, not in whispers of headless spirits wandering the woods. The forest enveloped him in silence, broken only by the crunch of leaves under his boots. His flashlight cast narrow beams of light, illuminating gnarled trees that seemed to stretch out their twisted branches like skeletal hands. A faint breeze carried with it the smell of damp earth and decay. As he walked deeper into the forest, Ethan noticed the air becoming heavier. A chilling wind brushed past him, making the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He stopped and turned, suddenly feeling as though he was being watched. But all he could see was an endless sea of shadows. Then he heard it, a faint sound like metal dragging against stone. The noise grew louder, resonating through the darkness. His heart began to pound as he scanned the woods, his flashlight trembling in his grip. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice quivering. Silence. He took a hesitant step forward, and that's when he saw it. Emerging from the shadows was a figure cloaked in tattered black garments. It moved with an unnerving grace, carrying a long, rusted sword in its hand. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he realized the figure had no head. The Headless Specter stopped and turned its neckless torso toward him, as if acknowledging his presence. Ethan froze, paralyzed by terror, but his instincts screamed at him to run. Without another thought, he bolted down the path, his flashlight flickering wildly. The forest came alive with the sound of pursuit. The heavy footsteps of the specter seemed impossibly fast, closing the distance no matter how hard Ethan ran. He could hear the metallic scrape of the sword dragging behind it, a sinister promise of what awaited him. He stumbled into a clearing where the remnants of an old, crumbling chapel stood. Desperate for safety, he dashed inside and barricaded the door with a broken pew. The darkness of the chapel was suffocating, but it was the only refuge he could find. Ethan pressed his ear against the door, straining to hear. At first, there was only silence. Then, the dragging sound returned, slow and deliberate, circling the chapel. A sudden, deafening crash shattered the quiet. The door splintered as the Headless Specter forced its way inside. Ethan fell backward, his flashlight rolling away, leaving him in near darkness. The specter loomed over him, raising its sword high. In a final act of desperation, Ethan grabbed the flashlight and shone it directly at the figure. For a brief moment, the light illuminated its form. Ethan saw the truth. Its head, pale and ghastly, was clasped in its free hand, its lifeless eyes staring directly into his. The last thing Ethan heard was his own scream echoing through the forest. By dawn, the chapel was empty, and Ethan was never seen again. Only his flashlight remained, flickering weakly in the